Hello everyone, welcome to IT Tech Talk. I'm your host Joel Ward, and with me is Shane. Shane, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Joel. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too. So Shane, we've been communicating for a little bit back and forth. I think we actually had a show prior to this that got canceled. I have a lot of cancellations due to things in my life and just different things. So I'm glad we finally get to talk. If we were already scheduled in, so I'm glad we finally got this chance to get you on the show. I just want to give my listeners an update on you. So why don't you share what you do and how you got into the space?
Sure. Yeah. I understand the cancellations. I'm in no rush to do these things. I just every week or so, I jump on a podcast and talk about what people want to hear about AI writing, and there's the field is going so fast. You probably heard of like GPT-2 back in 2019 being released, and it feels like a lifetime since then. I used GPT-2 to write a couple of books, to help me write a couple of books as a creative assistant. And I've been getting into the latest tools. As recently as about a month ago, there was a brand new AI writing tool that was released, and I'm getting into that one. And then also there's OpenAI. The big one most people know about is GPT-3 on OpenAI's API, and hundreds of applications have been built. Everything from copywriting to creative writing, helping you outline a book, character outlines to video games, chatbots, and everything has been built on these APIs. And so I'm just immersed in the space and trying to figure out how best to communicate with the robots and have them say something interesting or something funny, and help me get along. And so, yeah, this is what I'm focused on. And then my background is a software engineer for about 10 years as a data scientist in the medical field.
That's really cool. Yeah, I just pulled it up because I was, while you were talking, I pulled that up on my one screen. I got multiple screens up so I can pull up things.
Mm-hmm.
I was pulling up the GPT-3. It's just so fascinating, the stuff you're talking about, because AI has come a very long way. And I know it's not so much AI's robotics, but I can't think of that dog that like walks in that one college. They have that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that dog they have, but the AI they use,
the one we were all worried about that was going to take over all the streets and everything.
The one they knock over all the time. But the AI that is used to power some of these devices nowadays, and even to just like the AIs in like video games, like it's insane how far in advance we've come in the last 10 years with AI technology.
Yeah, and yeah, there's those few robotics things that make it to the headlines. There's the few, this generative writing that makes it to the headlines when everybody was like, oh no, AI's doing all the writing now. It's going to write nothing but fake news. These make it to the headlines. But under the current of it all is, an immense amount of academic and corporate and government research into it. And then there's people like me who are using it for to help. I make a cancer clinical trial search engine at my day job, and so we just use it to read documents and have it use its intelligence based on past documents, how to sort them, and basically make a little Google search engine out of it. And so that's where I first picked it up and have been using it in applications. Also in laboratory, in the academic space, it's really helping drug discovery in laboratories. But then these few things like the robotics and then the writing come out to a point where me and you can interact. The average person can interact with it and use it, and you see how much progress it's made, and how much it makes in just a couple of years. It's very fast. Yeah,
and there's so many perks to having AI at this point, because there's so many applications. I'm looking at this right now. It says there's over 300 applications now using GPT-3, and you think about it, and you think about the world we lived in prior to this. I was actually just setting up my internet, and we were just talking about this before the show, about setting up my internet, and you were having your internet issues today. And I was talking to a friend of mine before we got on the show, and she was saying how, do you remember the days where we had to literally wait for the dial-up to finish? I was like, yeah. And now we have speeds that literally load, like, you could be sitting there on the couch and your DVD could be done or your movie could be done downloading in seconds, or your game could be done downloading in seconds, just because of the fact that we have advancements in technology and AI is increased. The internet speeds have increased. 5G is a thing. Like, all this stuff that a few years ago didn't exist and didn't really, people were like, oh, it's never going to take off. Like, and that's the thing, like, you want to talk about things not existing and growing. Like, Bitcoin was like, everybody made fun of Bitcoin, and look, people are millionaires off of that. Like, so somebody somewhere who is working on AI programs is making a ton of money because they're like, yeah, I developed software to make the world better, and people are like, AI is not going to go anywhere. And then look, 10 years down the road, now they're laughing at them because they're like, wow, yeah, it took off, and now it's used in almost tons of applications daily. I mean, AI.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't follow AI enough. I know that, and for those listening, for those who need it dumbed down for them, AI stands for artificial intelligence. I just want to point that out there, Shane, because a lot of people, some people don't know what AI is. Like, they're like, what are they talking about? AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it's very practical in today's society that we have AI in different fields and businesses and cities. So, and I'm sure you said you use this daily in your daily job, setting up for the clinical trial stuff. I think that's really cool that you have a program that basically sorts through stuff. Before, it took people in a room by themselves sorting through files, and now you just have a program doing it.
Yeah, and we're able to maintain like a pretty small team because we use the intelligence of the scientists at the company, very few, do the work building the databases, and then we in essence teach the AI to do their job. And so it feels like there's more people at the company than there really are, because we build these AI assistants that make their job faster. And so I took the same sort of idea when I was writing my first two books. I just kind of, during the pandemic, had some extra time on my hands, and the thought of, okay, I'm not going out to dinners or anything, so I'm just going to spend a couple hours after work writing, because I've always wanted to write something. And then GPT-2, I learned how to use it and figured, okay, it's going to help me write this book. And so within 1 year, during the lockdown, I was able to put out 2 books, and I never thought I could have done that before. Part of it was, yes, the AI was helping me be a better writer and come up with new ideas faster than I might have Also, it just destroys writer's block, because once you're stuck, you're at a point like you wrote your paragraph and you're like, I don't know what to write next. Put that previous paragraph into the system, and then have it think of a bunch of new thoughts related to it. And most of it's probably junk, because the AIs, they don't respect truth. They don't really know what's going on. But if you do enough iterations of it, you get some gold out of it, and then that keeps you going. And so I feel like writer's block isn't so much of a thing. You more have to kind of direct these assistants to help you write. And anybody could pull up, if you're stuck on any of your writing, you can pull up these free ones. We could put some links in. So there's one called GPTJ, which is an open source, totally open version that's being hosted right now. You could find it at 6b.eleuther.ai. You can also apply to OpenAI's beta access, and then you can get access to GPT-3. And like you said, there's hundreds of applications built on top of the GPT-3 system, and I've thought about making my own, and then I figure I found somebody already built that one, somebody already built that one, so it creates these it was probably a handful of researchers that came up with the idea for this kind of language model, and it really worked well, and now it's created entire economies, hundreds of applications that are all charging. Y'all put your credit card in to get use to be able to use it, and it's just like it creates whole new industries for people right away. And yeah, that's one of the reasons these things grow so fast. And the other one people can get access to that's free right now is called AI 21 Labs. Is an Israeli group that created one about the same size as GPT-3, and right now it's free for anybody to try out, to break their writer's block, whatever they're doing, and yeah, get their writing done faster.
Yeah, and what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you email these links to me so I can set them up and send them to put them in the show notes so people can get a hold of them, because I just pulled up the Luther one, and I was looking at and just thinking, I have a book I'm writing about success. I'm thinking, well, maybe this might help me get this book done, because I've been working on this for like 2 years now, and it's like trying to get it done is like I hit that, like you said, hit that writer's block, and I'm just like, where am I going to go from here? Like, and I actually have 3 female co-authors that work on the book with me as well, who are just phenomenal people. And actually, one of them lives in Washington, close to you, so it's actually not that far from you. It's really like I love their oops. Sorry, my computer's I love their ideas and stuff, and how they base success on what they've done. And so we all kind of joined up, and I kind of like pulled them on the team. I was like, hey, I think you should write in my book. Like, I think you should add your ideas, and I think maybe I might have to pass this on to them, because this might help them as well. But I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking like, man, I hit writer's block every day. It feels like I sit in front of here like, all right, today's the day I'm gonna write. I'm gonna finish a chapter, and I'm sitting there, and it's like the clicker's blinking. I'm just like, I can't think of anything. and so yeah, I totally understand that. And honestly, I've wondered, and honestly, because I don't focus on AI. I focus on technology and stuff, but not so much AI. And knowing that there's stuff out there for people like me who are struggling with writer's block is actually fascinating to me. And that you basically just taught me something new today. Sure,
and it's not technical. All of these applications are just a word processor, really. So you just put in your there's a few parameters that you adjust that you kind of need to understand. There's like, you can kind of turn it up and down the randomness of what it's going to say. But I'll give you some tips on doing it. So if you use any of these tools, maybe writer's block is dead, but I don't think it saves you time, because it does not produce perfect writing, and it may not understand. But if you keep iterating, it breaks writer's block, but you just have to decide what's the best thing to say next. And with the 2 books that I had written, I did a technical method of it. I used a program to loop through my prompts, what I want it to talk about, and then write hundreds and hundreds of pages about it. And then I would read those pages and pull out things that worked for me. And that was GPT-2, which is far less intelligent than GPT-3. And so the next book that I'm writing, I'm trying to make it a little bit more efficient. And so one thing I'm starting with now is I'm building my entire outline of the book with like chapter headings and sub-chapter topics, and then put those into the model to see what else it has to say about it. And so I can hopefully it'll be more efficient in the writing. But it's already helped me write the outline itself. It already comes up with new ideas.
Yeah. Could you give a little insight into what your books are about? I think we've talked about you and me, but could you give my listeners a little insight what your books are about? Sure.
The books I have out right now are they're fun. So the first one I put out was poetry that was written by AI. And I have my girlfriend is a poet, and I have some friends who are, and my editor is a poet, and I had them write the first line of a poem in response to some pictures of AI art, because there was another method where AI made these pictures. It generates these cool looking images, and so I had a real poet look at the AI image, write the first line, and then I had the AI fill out the rest of the poem, and published. This was just kind of for me to learn how to self-publish and get everything. I've got all of that figured out. I formed a publishing company, and I got all that figured out on my first book. And then on the second book, which is what I was really writing all along, is called Stone Age Code, and it's about human evolution and AI's evolution as an analogy. From my background as a biologist, I like to talk about where we came from, why we sat down and chipped at stone tools in the first place, and compare that to why I still sit down every day and chip at these damn blocks of code all the time. And I find that it's probably a similar compulsion in our brain. And so I wrote Stone Age Code about evolution of us and the evolution of artificial intelligence and where it's going. And so those books are kind of fun, kind of like a passion project of mine. And what I'm working on now, because I love being an author, and so what I'm working on now is going to be some more practical nonfiction, how to do this, how to do AI writing kind of books.
Okay.
So yeah,
That's really cool. So you said you were a software engineer, is that correct?
Yeah, data scientist, software engineer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's the day in the life of a software engineer? I've watched videos of the day in the life of a web developer and software engineers and stuff. But what's the day in the life of a software engineer for you? Like, what does that entail?
Sure. I joined this startup in 2013, and I knew Python. I was a Python programmer because I used to work in a laboratory. And that scientists, like laboratory scientists, all use Python. And so then I joined a startup that was making a web-based system. And so they use JavaScript. Okay. And so I transitioned to a JavaScript software engineer. And I had a mentor really help me learn that. And, we started building this system that got more and more and more complex, and we got funding for the company, so we were able to hire more engineers and really build this thing out. But every single day I just sit down and try to solve incredibly difficult problems, and as the time has gone on, the code base, because I just write code every day, the code base that we've built is millions and millions of lines long, and somehow we have to keep all that in our brain and then dive in every day. And then we have customers now, which is the worst, because then they file complaints, and then we have to discover why did it work this way, and dig into code I wrote 4 years ago that I don't remember. So I say the day in the life is very much just like, drink coffee and tea and try to focus on some problem for like an hour, but then go brain dead because the problem was so hard. And then over a week, maybe you'll solve it, but it's, yeah.
So I'm not the same as you. I'm a web developer, not by trade. I'm an IT guy by trade, but I do web development. I took classes from Treehouse and Google and like different things, and I just learned. And so now I have all this like knowledge, and I understand that because like I'll build a website for someone and they'll say, hey, I want this changed, the colors of this. And so you have to go down those lines of, which I call it code, but it's just this HTML, mumbo jumbo. And I have to find where I put the color code in the Javas or in the HTML file, and then I have to go to the CSS file. And it's like, it's all this, I understand your pain because I have to deal with it. And it's like, I wrote that like a week ago, and I don't remember where I put that. And now I have to go through it. So I understand your pain. As when someone calls me up and says, hey, did you remember to change the colors? I'm like, I'm working on it. It's going to take me a while. Like, your site's still up, but right now I'm in the files, like, trying to find it. And I don't know what you use. I use Visual Studio to do all my stuff. I don't know what you use, what kind of programming you use to type.
Yeah, so your own code is hard enough, but real hell is other people's code.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! When you have coworkers and you've got to dive into their code, yeah. We use for our JavaScript stuff. We pay for some IDE called WebStorm.
Okay.
It's like a JetBrains thing, but most of the work I try to do just in a simple text editor, Atom, because we use a Mac. Yeah. We use a Mac, and then I'm often in just the kind of Linux environment as well.
I also am a Linux. Actually, one of the servers, which people can't see, they're not on. The video won't be up for a while, but then one of my servers is actually running Ubuntu server, and it's where I just put a couple things, files, stuff like that. But mainly, it's my favorite server because I get to use the terminal. Whereas like I have a Windows server where I basically have a GUI, which I just go in the GUI. But I'm a big Linux and Android and stuff. I something about using like something about using it is just very fascinating to me. Like Windows is great. Like I like Windows. But something about Linux and using terminals and typing in how you make it work, like even in Ubuntu or Linux Mint or Debian, all this stuff it's so fascinating to me. And my uncle got me into that years ago, and I stuck with it, just for the fact that it was fascinating to me. Like so here's the funny thing, I would delete Windows off my computer, put Ubuntu on, delete Ubuntu, put Linux on, go back and forth, and then finally go back to Windows, get bored of Windows. Right now I have Windows on my machine, but I have a virtual machine over there that runs like 8 different Linux servers on it. So I can like test different things I need to do within the Linux environment. So I really do have a heart for different softwares and different things. Like I've used Atom before. I'm very well endowed when it comes to software.
Yeah, you're much more than a simple web developer. Then it sounds like you're basically a software engineer, maybe just without the degree. But that's that I think you've got the right attitude to just be able to figure it out when you need to, which is that's really all software engineering is. Yeah,
I do consider myself an MSP, which is managed service provider, because I do handle and manage servers and stuff like that for other businesses. And actually, right now there's a project. It's not there's a bunch of wires over there, but there's like off to that, there's a couple things that are like hard drives. Actually, no, wait, they're up above there. But there's a hard drive collection. I'm getting ready to build a Plex media server where all my family's DVDs and stuff we're gonna upload to there, so that it's like basically having tons of files. And one of the things years ago, I always used to look at servers like they were complicated. I used to look at web development like it was complicated. And I remember taking the development classes, and I was like sitting there watching the instructor do over the stuff, and I was typing it in, and I was like, this is easy. Like, why did I ever think this was hard? And then when I learned how to program servers and do all the coding and uploading the software and stuff and running the services and stuff, I found out how easy it was. And I'm very hands-on, so like for me, this is fun. Like that's why I have a whole rack in my basement, because it's fun for me. Most people come to my house, look at that, they're like, why do you need that? I'm like, just because I can. Like it's for me. I use it for my client data center for my business. I use it for my Proxmox servers for my virtualization stuff. I have a Minecraft server. I mean, it's fun to me.
So somebody with your skills is pretty good to partner up with mine as well, because I'm very high level and I don't like hardware and I don't like dealing with setting up systems like that. I just pretty much, I like to be able to just carry my Mac around and log in somewhere and do everything there. But somebody who could set up systems is another good value. So one thing I wanted to bring up as well, like, so I've had to dive into some new Unix environments and do some like shell scripting to get it to perform file operations and stuff. And OpenAI's Codex is GPT-3, not trained on language, trained on code, and it's trained on all of GitHub, every public repository in GitHub, and I am very impressed that it not just copies and pastes code, but it really seems to know how to program. And all you do as the programmer is you put into it your comment. So you say, write a shell script that will open these files and start this database service and load them up, this and that. And it finishes the entire script for you and it runs.
Wow. Like
perfectly.
Wow. Because
it's a huge brain of a model trained on all of the world's code. It's seen everything. And so that does not replace, just like authors aren't replaced by these bots, but it makes your life as an engineer so much easier. Because if shell scripting is not something you've ever done, if Perl or something is not something you've ever done, have the model write it, and then you become more of an editor and a director in that sense too. So that's a very impressive model as well. Yeah.
That's really cool. I think that's fascinating to me because like it's to write a whole website, and I'm sure you know this, to write a whole line of code, you know, it takes hours, and you literally have to get every single line right, because one little line, especially on websites, I don't know, I don't do program, I don't program software, but you do mess up one little like asterisk or number or letter or even a comma, and it all falls apart.
Yeah, and this model like doesn't do that, because it's just like, you have to try it out, because if you prompt it the right way, if you're a good prompt engineer, as it's called, that's going to be the new job. You know, like a data scientist became like a new job. Prompt engineer is like a new job. It's somebody who understands programming and prompting the AI, who could speak with the AI to get it to finish the program. And yeah, it'll write. You know, I had to jump into computer vision, and I didn't have experience in it, and I just had to like write a computer vision program, and it finishes hundreds of lines of code with no errors in it at all. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I literally I find all this fascinating, and it's kind of funny how you said like we're kind of good together, because like I concept software or the hardware, and you can do the software, and that's where like a lot of people like don't understand, like with IT is like they're like, well, you can just make it run, right? Like it instantly, you just look at it and it runs. That's not how it works. Like I've learned that a lot of my problems are solved by a lot of hard thinking and a lot of background work. Like I have, like for example, I have a client whose printers keep going down, and I told him, I said, I think
printers are the worst.
Oh, I know. I said, I think it's your something's wrong with your IP, and he said, well, they're all on Wi-Fi. And I said, I literally think you need to hardwire these. And he didn't hardwire them. He kept them on Wi-Fi, and they kept having issues. And as soon as I finally convinced him to hardwire all his office printers, he never had a problem. Now, I told him, because he had a VPN system in his office, and what I told him was, I think your VPN is bouncing your router signal around to where your printers aren't connecting. And I might not have been right on that, but as soon as I plugged them into the connection, boom, they worked. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not smart, and I actually, it's a funny story, a guy who I learned a lot of IT stuff from told me that a lot of IT is basically looking at YouTube videos and looking at website sources that someone else fixed the problem for you, and then you solve that problem after them. So I do a lot of my fixes, because I've run into some very complex problems in IT work, and I have had to use the internet to like type in the problem, and boom, the code pops up that says, hey, this is what you're looking at, this is what you need to do. And I've honestly, it saved my butt tons of times, because I'll look at it and I'll rack my brain over it, and I'll come back to it hours later. I'm like, I'm just looking this up because I can't do this. I can't keep trying. And it works. Now, if there was an AI that could fix, if we could create an AI that could fix that problem, like, hey, this is the problem you're having, do this. And I'm like, well, that worked. But I doubt anybody's going to create an AI that helps solve
at this
IT
point
problems.
At this point, Google and YouTube act as the AI, because they kind of try to guess your intentions. I mean, they are a lot of machine learning goes into your search, and then they try to serve you up the most helpful result. The only difference with these GPT-3 and such, these generative models, is they take it one step further, is that they finish the result for you. And solving an IT issue that mixes hardware and this and that, that's who knows when it can solve that. But these generative models are different than search engines, because not only do you search with it, but it's Stack Overflow is where people find code. You copy and paste it, but now you search and it writes brand new code. So that's something Google does. Google just serves you up old stuff right now, and these models are now writing brand new stuff. So that's the only difference, but it's a revolution for sure.
Yeah. And so your new book, you said when is it coming out? I don't think you said that yet. When is your new book coming out?
Yeah, so if for just a general intro to the machine learning, and if anybody's interested in the human aspects of why we evolved the way we did, Stone Age Code is at stoneagecode.com, and that one's out. And the new one sometime next year. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a date yet. But.
Okay. Yeah, and I definitely want to leave these links into the description for all this stuff. And if you can send all the links to your books and stuff for this, as I'd love my listeners to check out your stuff and definitely check out this learning, because I think it's just fascinating that there's this programs like Eleuther AI, like this stuff like that. That's just fascinating to me, because it's gonna someone somewhere in my listening base is gonna be like, what? I never even heard of that. And they'll look it up and they'll be like, wow, this is really cool. And yeah, so this show is very tech oriented, but it's also entrepreneurship entrepreneurship. It's like influencer based. I
Cool.
love getting a lot of different backgrounds on the show. If I just stick to one thing, tech, I'm very limited to what I can talk about. When I talk about everything from entrepreneurship to influencers to people like you who have like really cool like information about AI and who are like software engineers and stuff who have like really cool backgrounds in it, I think it's just fascinating, because I learned stuff that's new. And recently I had Eric, Chris Hood. Wow, I can't think today. Chris Hood on my show from Google, and he was talking about just the space is how the space has changed with different oh my gosh, I can't think today, programs that Google has created to help businesses grow. So I honestly
really?
think it's so cool that
I'll have to listen to that.
AI, the Chris Hood episode is up on the thing. Is actually my most viewed episode at this point. Like, it has hit way more views than any other episode I've ever had. So definitely check it out. But hey, Shane, we are on our time. But I look forward to getting all your links and sharing with my listeners. It's been a blast having you on the show. If there's anything else like you want to share before we head off, feel free for a few minutes to share.
Sure. Yeah, I'm on social media as Chimps Are Hungry. It's a name you would have to ask my 7th grade self why I named it Chimps Are Hungry. But
Yeah.
that's where you could find me dilly-dallying. And then I have a consulting business that I've just really gotten started. I've had one client, but at fortrockmedia.com, and that to help people with this AI writing. If anybody's really serious or they got all the serious projects that they need help with, you could find me there. So, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Shane. Well, it's been great having you on the show, and I'll have all the links to Shane's books and his business and his social media on the description. So feel free to check them out. And Shane, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it was wonderful to talk to you.